After confessing my love to Uncle Liuli, a family friend, he took me to meet a girl in a wheelchair. Her name was Fanyueshi, and she was also his future partner. Liuli said that Fanyueshi had lost her legs and her dreams while saving him, and he had to take responsibility for her. I didn't understand. Did one really have to marry someone to repay a life-saving grace? He didn't answer my question. In my previous life, I didn't believe that Liuli didn't love me and constantly tested his limits, until he watched as his subordinates broke my fingers one by one. He didn't even frown when he heard my heart-rending screams. I was completely heartbroken. Later, because my injuries were too severe and I could no longer go to the operating table, I was ultimately depressed and committed suicide by cutting my wrists. When I woke up again, I didn't hesitate to submit an application to become a doctor without borders. I stepped back from the position of his little niece. When the application was approved, I finally let out a sigh of relief. My fingertips trembled uncontrollably, and my eyes were red, but I didn't even notice. No one knew that I had been reborn. I was 21 years old. At the moment before I was about to confess my love to Liuli, that day, I was wearing a dress he had custom made for me at great expense, and I had booked the most luxurious hotel in Jingbei. I invited many friends to witness the beginning of our love. Since I could remember, Liuli had been by my side. My parents were doctors without borders, and their whereabouts were uncertain. I saw them only a few times a year. Liuli had accompanied me through almost the first half of my life, the happy times and the unhappy times. People in the circle had tacitly agreed that I was Liuli's child bride in waiting. In my previous life, several of my close friends gave me a lot of ideas when they knew I was going to confess, which made my face turn red. I was secretly looking forward to it in my heart, but no one expected that Liuli would reject me. Just like in my previous life, Liuli seemed to have already guessed what I was going to do. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he was rubbing his 2 fingers, brewing words to reject me. The emotions in the bottom of his eyes were unclear. At that time, I thought Liuli was just worried that I was younger than him and couldn't distinguish between love and affection, so I smiled and said, "Uncle, I like you. My heart beats uncontrollably faster when I see you. When I can't see you, I miss you crazily. It's an emotion that I can't suppress no matter what. I'm very sure that my feelings for you are love." The others also joined in the jeer, and it ended up in a hasty conclusion. And that day, I was still smiling. But the smile didn't reach my eyes. Just as he was about to speak, I took a step ahead. "Uncle, the research project that I worked on for a year was completed last week. I'm very happy, so I want to celebrate." Liuli was stunned on the spot. My friends also looked at each other in dismay. When they were about to speak, I glanced at them indifferently. Only then did they smile awkwardly and silently put the banner that read, "Say yes, say yes," behind them. A confession ended without a result. After the event, Liuli was smoking in the corridor with his friend. He leaned against the wall, and his slender, boned hands played with a gold-embossed lighter. The flame flickered on and off. His friend teased with a smile, "With this commotion today, I thought Seria was going to confess her love to you. I didn't expect it to be a false alarm." Liuli closed his eyes slightly, with a faint smile on his lips. "A little girl's thoughts. Don't guess randomly. I have no other intentions towards Jinue. Taking care of her is just because of the friendship with her family." His friend didn't believe it. "You're just too close to the situation to see clearly. Look at the way your little girl looks at you. Do you think we're stupid? If you were really innocent, why did you go and warn that little boy when he confessed his love to your little girl? You even pretended to be her boyfriend." Liuli didn't say anything. I didn't listen anymore either and withdrew into the darkness. In my previous life, Liuli was like this. His kindness to me had long crossed the line, yet he just refused to admit it. After returning home, I submitted an application to become a doctor without borders. After my parents died successively in the war zone, I wanted to carry on their legacy. It's just that in my previous life, it ended before it even started. Fortunately, heaven pitied me and gave me a chance to start over, too. I looked at the reporting date, then at the desk calendar next to me. I took out a pen and silently marked the reporting day. Coincidentally, that day was Liuli's birthday. Suddenly, there was a knock on my door. It was Liuli. He was used to knocking twice and then coming in, but this time, there was a girl following him. The girl was in a wheelchair, wearing a white dress. There was not a trace of blood on her face, and her eyes were filled with a faint melancholy. She looked extremely delicate. "Jinue, come here," he said to me. I didn't move. I just glanced at the girl. She was Fanyueshi, I thought that without my confession, Li Yuli wouldn't bring her in front of me, but I didn't expect that what was supposed to happen would still happen. Jingyue. Li Yuli frowned and called me again. Fang Yueshi saw that I had a cold expression. She lowered her eyes and said in a very soft voice, Yuli, it's okay. It's normal that Miss Shen doesn't like me when we meet for the first time. If she minds my presence, I can go back to the villa in the suburbs. I can't go anywhere without my legs. It doesn't matter where I live, I don't have to live here. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with tears, but they didn't fall. She was like a delicate little flower, pretending to be strong. Li Yuli's frown deepened, and his gaze towards me held a bit of disappointment. Jingyue, uncle. You can arrange for whoever you want to live in the villa, you don't actually have to tell me. You're the master of this house. My voice was flat, revealing nothing, but in Li Yuli's ears, it was full of thorns. He thought I was throwing a tantrum. Jingyue, you don't need to talk to me in this tone. I brought Yueshi to meet you today because I want you to meet your little aunt. 3 years ago, during the earthquake, she lost her legs while saving me. I need to take responsibility for her. If you still want to stay in this house, well, put away your spoiled girl temper and don't cause trouble for Yueshi. His warning gaze swept over me. I wanted to say something, but in the end, I remained silent. Actually, I couldn't blame him. I had an extreme possessiveness towards Li Yuli. Since I was a child, I hoped that I was the only one in his eyes and that the only woman by his side could be me. So over the years, he had no romantic scandals. Even if a woman dared to make a false claim, I would deal with her. All his favoritism and exceptions were for me. So in my previous life, when he was going to marry Fang Yueshi, I had a breakdown. Did one really have to marry someone to repay a life-saving grace? I thought about it for a long time. I lost my life. I still couldn't figure it out. Now I've figured it out. Some things just can't be understood. 3. Fang Yueshi was going to stay in the room next to Li Yuli's. It used to be mine. Before Li Yuli brought me to live here, he secretly asked his friends for advice, then drew the blueprints himself and renovated the entire room. He turned it into a beautiful pink princess room. He also bought a lot of limited edition dolls and placed them on my bedside. He raised me like a princess. From childhood to adulthood, he always said, as long as it's something Jingyue likes and can make Jingyue happy, I will do it. I hope our Jingyue grows up healthy and happy as a little princess. At that time, his eyes were filled with tender and affectionate love. It made me fall, but he had been standing outside all along. In the room, Li Yuli leaned against the door frame. After coldly sweeping his gaze over me, he said, I asked Aunt Chen to clean the guest room on the first floor. You can stay on the first floor for a while. I didn't say anything. I just folded my clothes and put them in the suitcase. Then, when I got up and was about to pick up the doll on the bedside as usual, my hand stopped. Li Yuli's gaze also moved to the doll. Seeing that I didn't move for a long time, he said, I'll bring the doll down for you later. I took a deep breath, withdrew my gaze, and forced a smile. No need, give it to little aunt. I didn't want Li Yuli anymore. What were a few dolls? It was true love before, but now it's nothing. Jingyue, are you still angry with me? Li Yuli asked coldly. Why would I be angry with little uncle? I asked. Little uncle also has his own life. Now that you have someone you like and someone you want to protect, I should be happy for you, right? Li Yuli's eyes darkened, his thin lips opened and closed, but he couldn't make a sound for a long time. When I pulled my suitcase and left, Fang Yueshi was not far outside the door. Her gaze towards me held a bit of mockery. Just like in my previous life, she pretended to be a white lotus on the surface, but in fact, she targeted me everywhere and cried at the slightest disagreement. The tears of the weak are always easy to arouse sympathy. Miss Shen, I'm sorry to have inconvenienced you. If I weren't inconvenient, Yuli wouldn't have done this. My hand tightened on the handle of the suitcase. When I wanted to bypass her and leave directly, she suddenly grabbed my wrist. I reflexively shook it off. Ah! Fang Yueshi's wheelchair rolled uncontrollably down the stairs. Her scream rang out, and the servants in the villa rushed over. Yuli, save me, save me. When Li Yuli heard this, he ran out of the room in a panic, pushed me aside, and lunged forward to grab the handrail, preventing the wheelchair from rolling further. I stood there in a daze, my throat tightening. It wasn't me. The wheelchair was stuck on the stairs, and several servants blocked the way. Li Yuli quickly picked Fang Yueshi up in his arms and walked up to me. The servants also cooperatively carried the wheelchair over. Yuli. I was so scared, I thought I was going to die. Her eyes were completely red, and the fear in her eyes was real. After Li Yuli soothed Fan Yueshi, he looked at me angrily. Shinjinue, are you crazy? If something really happened to Yueshi, you would be suspected of murder. Do you know that? 4. I bit my lower lip, full of grievances, and my nose was sore. I didn't, it wasn't me. She suddenly grabbed my hand, and I just shook it off. When Fan Yueshi heard this, she said with a sobbing voice, "It's my fault, Yuli, don't blame Miss Shin. I didn't lock the wheelchair just now, so this happened." "Yueshi, you don't need to speak for Jinue anymore," Li Yuli said coldly. "I know what kind of temper she has. Over the years, she has used petty tricks to drive away all the women who got close to me." I couldn't help but laugh, with tears in the corners of my eyes. "So little uncle, you don't believe me, right? Are you worthy of my trust?" he countered. "Yes, I'm not worthy. Only Fan Yueshi is worthy. You believe whatever she says." After saying that, I pulled my suitcase and wanted to leave, but Li Yuli asked the servants to stop me. He said, "Apologize." I looked back at Li Yuli in disbelief. He repeated, "Yueshi has been wronged for no reason. You should apologize." "What if I don't?" I asked with tears in my eyes. I thought that when I faced such a scene again, I could face it calmly, but I overestimated myself. When all the previous favoritism turned into a sharp sword and stabbed at me, it really hurt so much. "You know my methods," Li Yuli said coldly. He looked at the servants behind me. The servants looked at each other. Just as they were about to step forward and press my shoulders, I sneered self-deprecatingly. I let go of the handle of the suitcase and bent down to apologize to Fan Yueshi. "I was wrong about what happened today. I shouldn't have shaken off your hand when you grabbed me. I'm sorry for almost making you fall." Fan Yueshi was stunned for 2 seconds. And Li Yuli's expression also became solemn. After I stood up, I looked at Li Yuli. "Little uncle, is it okay now? If not, I can kneel," I said. Li Yuli's eyes were full of complex emotions, and in the end, he didn't say anything. I pulled my suitcase and went downstairs. As soon as I reached the first floor, Aunt Chin said, "Sir is probably in a bad mood today." "Miss, don't be angry with Sir. Over the years, we've all seen how much Sir dotes on you." She was speaking for Li Yuli while trying to take my suitcase. I just smiled. In the past, when Li Yuli and I quarreled, Aunt Chin would always be the peacemaker. After all these years, Aunt Chin was still the same, but Li Yuli and I could never go back to the past. "Miss, aren't you going to the guest room?" she asked in surprise. I shook my head. "No, but Sir, please tell little uncle for me that thank you for taking care of me before. I won't bother him anymore in the future. This life. This is enough. I don't want to bear the pain of my previous life again." 5. After Li Yuli settled Fan Yueshi, he called Aunt Chen and asked her to bring up the surveillance footage from the corridor just now. When Aunt Chen came, she hesitated to speak. Actually, he believed Shinjinue. Over the years, although she used petty tricks to keep those women away from him, they were all harmless. She knew where the bottom line was. So when he saw from the surveillance that it was Fan Yueshi who took the initiative to provoke Shinjinue first, he didn't react much. He owed Fan Yueshi a life. As long as Fan Yueshi wasn't too excessive, he could let her do anything. I knew that Miss wouldn't hurt anyone. Aunt Chin said indignantly. Li Yuli rubbed his forehead. "Make something Jinue likes to eat tonight." "But Miss has already left." Li Yuli was immediately stunned. "What?" "Miss asked me to tell you that thank you for taking care of her before. She won't bother you anymore in the future." Aunt Chin said it a bit sarcastically. Li Yuli didn't blame her. He just let out a tired sigh. Jinue has this kind of temper. She can't bear the slightest bit of grievance. After he asked Aunt Chen to go out first to prepare dinner, he called Shinjinue, but Shinjinue didn't answer. The more he called, the more irritable he became, and finally he threw his phone on the desk. Actually, since half a month ago, starting from the day he originally thought Shinjinue was going to confess to him, he had always been inexplicably irritable. Especially when he met Shinjinue's eyes and heard her speaking in that indifferent tone. He always felt as if something was slipping out of his control. Now, it seemed that all the answers were about to surface. 6. It wasn't a surprise to me that Li Yuli could find me. There were still 7 days until the reporting date. After leaving the villa, I went back to my own home. Li Yuli was standing outside the courtyard. The cigarette in his 2 fingers glowed brightly and dimmed, and his brows were tightly furrowed. I had just come back from the hospital and saw him, off work. I nodded and didn't say more. Suddenly, there was a deathly silence all around. He was waiting for me to continue, but in fact, I had nothing more to say, until his phone rang. It was Fan Yueshi's call. Li Yuli didn't avoid me and swiped to answer it on the spot. Her delicate sobs came from the other side. Yuli, I had a nightmare. I dreamed about that earthquake. I dreamed that I couldn't save you. Can you come back and stay with me? She was asking tentatively. Li Yuli subconsciously looked at me. By then, it was already dark. I lowered my eyes to look at the elongated shadow on the ground, with a calm expression. After a long time, I heard him say, I'll be back right away. The call ended. Li Yuli was about to hold my hand, but I frowned and avoided it. His movement froze. When he looked at me, there was a bit more confusion in his eyes. He probably forgot, in the past, our intimacy was because I regarded him as my beloved little uncle. You have little aunt now. We shouldn't cross the line anymore, I said in a calm tone. Li Yuli sneered and retracted his hand, pretending to be calm as he put it into his pocket. I know you can't accept my relationship with Yueshi for a while, but it's okay, I can wait until you can accept it before getting engaged to her. For now, just get to know and adapt to each other. I didn't speak and remained silent. In my previous life, ever since Fang Yueshi appeared, Li Yuli and I never had a day of talking properly. We quarreled as soon as we met. He scolded me for being shameless for falling in love with my little uncle. He also said that I couldn't distinguish between family affection and love. He pushed me away step by step, but I was as persistent as a wall, even though I was stabbed all over by all those vicious words. My friends, his friends, all tried to persuade me. Li Yuli doesn't like you. Why don't you believe it? He likes Fang Yueshi. Every time, I would cry and say no, that Li Yuli loved me. On my 18th birthday when I became an adult, he thought I was asleep and secretly kissed me. He said he would marry me when I turned 22. I always firmly believed that Li Yuli was only going to marry Fang Yueshi to repay her kindness. Until that day, the Xiao family wanted to take me away at the bar. I had no contact with the Xiao family and didn't understand why they wanted to arrest me. Until the second eldest of the Xiao family said that the old man of the Xiao family had a cerebral infarction, I suddenly understood. Li Yuli had said that the people from the Xiao family had looked for me. He said that the Xiao family's hands were dirty and told me to keep my distance from them. But I never knew that the Xiao family was looking for me because of the old man of the Xiao family. They sincerely asked me to perform the surgery. I cried and refused to leave. My pale knuckles tightly grabbed the corner of Li Yuli's clothes, but he coldly said, let go. He watched indifferently as I was dragged away and as my fingers were broken one by one. He listened to my heart-rending screams. He didn't even frown. At that moment, I finally confirmed that Li Yuli didn't love me. 7. What are you thinking about? Li Yuli's voice sounded, pulling me back from my thoughts. You should have had enough of making a fuss these days. Let's just forget about what happened last time. Jinue, you're not a child anymore. After saying that, he opened the passenger side door and looked at me. I stood still on the spot, with an ugly smile on my face. I suddenly really wanted to ask the Li Yuli from my previous life, why could he be so cruel as to watch me suffer, watch me become depressed and die of depression, even if he didn't love me? I was still the little niece he had raised since childhood. Little uncle. What you said that day was right. Over the years, any woman who appeared around you would be driven away by my petty tricks, so for little aunt's safety, I won't go back. Li Yuli frowned. Shinjinue, little uncle, you know that I like you, right? I calmly interrupted Li Yuli's words. His pupils suddenly shrank. Over the years, I had never hidden my love. As long as one wasn't blind, they could tell. I believe Li Yuli knew it too. Jinue, he looked at me in a dilemma. Don't worry, little uncle, it won't happen again in the future. I was ignorant before and mistook family affection for love, making a lot of jokes. Now I'm cutting my losses in time. I hope little uncle will forgive me. After saying that, I smiled again. Li Yuli was like a soulless person, standing there blankly, as if the few words I had just said were very difficult to understand. He opened his lips, about to speak. The phone in his pocket rang again. In the quiet night, it was extremely harsh. One ring after another. He seemed to still be in a daze, but I had already taken 2 steps back and turned to leave. 8. Li Yuli looked at Shinjinue's gradually blurring back and suddenly felt a bit lost. He habitually took out the cigarette case from his pocket and lit another cigarette. After taking a big puff, he came back to his senses a little. He looked up. The light in the room on the 2nd floor of the villa had already been turned on, and Shinjinue's figure was reflected on the curtain. 3 years ago, when Shinjinue turned 18, on her coming-of-age day, he was drunk and confusedly entered Shinjinue's room, looking at the sleeping little girl. In a moment of drunkenness, he crossed the line for the first time and kissed Shin Jinue. The little girl seemed to be having a beautiful dream, with a smile on her lips. His family had been friends with the Shin family for generations. He was 7 years older than Shin Jinue, from childhood to adulthood. Although he had tacitly allowed Shin Jinue's overstepping, he had always reminded her not to confuse family affection with love, and not to mistake dependence for love. Shin Jinue didn't love him, and neither did he. He let Shin Jinue consider herself his child bride in waiting. One reason was to drive away those clueless young men, and the other was to reduce the romantic scandals around him. One Shin Jinue was already enough to give him a headache, but when he saw similar examples around him that didn't end well, he backed down. A relationship that had changed its nature couldn't go back to the starting point. It was better not to start. After he sobered up, he went on a business trip to Hong Kong City the next day, but he didn't expect to encounter an earthquake. He was saved by a girl of the same age as him after surviving the disaster. The little girl was a dancer. Because of him, she lost her legs and her dreams. Guilt and self-blame haunted him. With his financial resources, it wasn't difficult to support another girl. He had been supporting her for 3 years, except for his assistant. No one knew about this. The reason was simple. He was afraid that Shin Jinue would make a fuss and look for trouble with Fanyueshi. This time, he brought Fanyueshi back to Jingbei. One reason was to fulfill his promise to marry her, and the other was that he knew Shin Jinue was going to confess to him. He wanted Shin Jinue to know when to give up. They shouldn't have crossed the line and had no future, but now, Shin Jinue had backed down, but he started to regret it. 9. When Li Yuli returned to the villa, Fanyueshi was sitting in the living room waiting for him. She was dressed thinly. The night in Jingbei was extremely cold. After waiting all night, her hands were already icy cold. "Why didn't you go back to your room?" Li Yuli asked with a frown. Fanyueshi pursed her lips and lowered her eyes to look at her phone. "I called you many times, but you didn't answer. I was very worried about you, Yueshi." Li Yuli walked to the side of the sofa and sat down. His eyes were looking straight at Fanyueshi, without a trace of warmth. She looked up. "Jinue was raised by me. She has been with me all these years. Her temper was spoiled by me. When you decided to follow me 3 years ago, I already told you, I owe you a life. You can ask me to pay it back in any way, but you must never touch Jinue." As he spoke, Fanyueshi's eyes suddenly turned red. She looked at Li Yuli wronged. "Yuli, you suspect that I hurt Miss Shin, right?" Li Yuli didn't say much. He only left one sentence. "For Jinue's safety, there are many surveillance cameras in the villa." Fanyueshi was stunned on the spot and didn't react for a long time. She thought that Li Yuli had clearly stood by her side that day and believed her. She didn't expect that her petty tricks had long been seen through. After Li Yuli went upstairs, he didn't return to his own room. Instead, he went to Shin Jinue's previous room. After Fanyueshi moved in, everything in Shin Jinue's room had changed. Those dolls that Shin Jinue had once cherished were all put away, and the beautiful and lovely decorations had all been replaced with simple hanging ornaments. "Aunt Chen." Li Yuli called Aunt Chen in. Aunt Chen came over quickly. Seeing Li Yuli sitting at the desk, she asked, "Sir, what's wrong?" He was about to speak when his eyes accidentally fell on the desk calendar in the gap of the desk. He bent down and picked it up. When he saw that the 28th on the desk calendar was circled with a black marker, he was stunned. Aunt Chen was sharp-eyed and also saw it. "Isn't this the day of Sir's birthday? I knew that Miss wouldn't really be angry with Sir." Hearing this, Li Yuli's lips inadvertently curved up. His fingertips rubbed the desk calendar. After being quiet for a while, he put the desk calendar back in place. He said in a slightly cheerful tone, "Renovate the guest room downstairs according to this layout. Let Yueshi live on the first floor. After this place is tidied up, make it look the same as Jinue's original room. I'll go pick her up in a few days." Aunt Chen smiled and agreed, and Fanyueshi, who was just at the door of the room, suddenly turned deathly pale. 10. There were 5 days left until the reporting date. My hand-over work was basically completed, but I didn't expect Fanyueshi to come to the hospital specifically to find me. In just a few days, she looked even more like a broken beauty. "Do you have something to see me about?" I asked her after putting away the medical record in my hand. Fanyueshi was sitting in a wheelchair. The disgust in her eyes was completely exposed without any disguise. She looked at me. "Shin Jinue, Yuli and I are about to get engaged. Can you stay away from Yuli? Is being a mistress who intervenes in other people's relationships your family's upbringing?" My hand that was reaching for the pen paused. I raised my eyelids to look at the woman in front of me, with a cold smile on my lips. Miss Fong, you'd better watch your mouth, watch my mouth, you should do things cleanly first, Shin Jingyue, don't think I don't know, everyone knows that you like Liu Li, you moved out of the Li family now just to play hard to get, let me tell you, Liu Li doesn't like you, he will never like you in this life, he can't like his own little niece. Fang Yueshi became more and more excited as she spoke, I couldn't help but laugh scornfully. In my previous life, Fang Yueshi and I hardly ever spent time alone. I knew she wasn't a good person, she, like me, would stop at nothing for the person she loved. The calculation in her eyes and the tricks she played were things I had long been tired of in my previous life, but at that time, I forgot. Only when one is about to lose something can one desperately try every means to hold on to it. In my previous life, with just a few words of provocation from her, even though I fought with her until I was black and blue, Liu Li remained unmoved, and in this life, I haven't done anything, but it made Liu Li willingly change. These days, Liu Li would send me messages from time to time. He told me that my room was still mine, exactly the same, nothing had changed, just like when I left, and just like before. He regularly ordered afternoon tea for me without fail. You say, does Liu Li love me? No. I also knew about the surveillance cameras in the villa. With Liu Li's character, he wouldn't not check. But he checked and had no reaction. It could only mean that he tacitly approved of Fang Yueshi bullying me. The current change was just because he wasn't used to my leaving, nothing more. After a long silence, I said, I can't like him anymore either. Fang Yueshi was suddenly stunned. Her originally excited emotions gradually calmed down. What did you say? I admit that the Liu Li in the past was very good. Since I was a child, whenever I was wronged, he would stand up for me. He was afraid that I would cry and be unhappy. Besides my parents, he was the best person to me in the world, so it was only natural for me to fall in love with him. But that day, when he saw me crying and still forced me to apologize to you, I no longer liked him. Fang Yueshi seemed a bit dazed, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. Just because of this? I nodded. Just because of this. If the person I like is willing to make me cry and be wronged, then he's not the person worthy of my love. Before Fang Yueshi left that day, she asked me again, no matter what Liu Li does, you won't like him anymore, right? I replied, yes, even if he died for me, I wouldn't like him anymore. 11. The night before the reporting date, just as I was about to board the plane, Liu Li sent me a message, I'll come pick you up later. I didn't reply. The other side was still showing typing and there was no follow-up for a long time. Just as I was about to put away my phone, Liu Li's voice call popped up. His voice was a bit relaxed and cheerful. Jingyue, I'll come pick you up later. There might be some traffic. I didn't answer. He was indeed on the way. The honking from the road came over. At this moment, the boarding announcement sounded again. The breathing on the other end of the line clearly stalled. After a 2-second pause, he asked softly, Jingyue, are you at the airport? Yeah, why are you at the airport? Are you going on a business trip? Why didn't you tell me? Did you forget that tomorrow is my little uncle? I interrupted Liu Li in a flat tone. He fell silent. I added, I'm going to follow the path my parents once walked. I don't know when I'll be back. Thank you for taking care of me all these years, little uncle. After being reborn, I thought about taking revenge on Liu Li, making him feel the pain of having his fingers broken. I also thought about dragging those who hurt me to die together. But my life is so long, why should I be limited to love and hatred? Liu Li once treated me wholeheartedly, that was true, let's just call it even. So now, I neither love nor hate him. Why is this so sudden? After a long while, he asked me. I didn't answer. Then he said, Jingyue, if this is because of Yueshi, I can explain, I can make her leave, but you can't leave. His tone was urgent, and the car horn was also very harsh. Jingyue, can you wait for me? Wait for me. I'll be there right away. No, it's too late. I smiled softly and then hung up the phone. After turning off my phone, the haze that had been pressing on my heart finally dissipated. Finally, everything came to an end. 12. Liu Li looked at the hung-up phone and kept dialing. In the end, he only got the cold mechanical voice. Shin Jingyue had turned off her phone. At this moment, he was more sober than ever. Shin Jingyue really didn't want him anymore. When he realized this fact, he lost control and punched the steering wheel. He violently loosened his tie. His heart ached as if he was suffocating, and even gasping for breath couldn't relieve the pain. Just as he was about to call his assistant to check Shinjinua's flight, Fan Yueshi's call came in again. Her voice was full of sobs. And she was begging him not to make her leave. These days, he had thought through a lot of things. Saving a life didn't necessarily mean having to marry the person. He could give Fan Yueshi enough money to ensure that she had a care-free life. He could give her whatever she wanted, except his heart. He had never realized how much space Shinjinue occupied in his heart. It was only until now, when Shinjinue left, that he understood that his whole heart was almost filled with her. The girl who would cry, laugh, and make a fuss in front of him. He always reminded Shinjinue in an elder's tone not to confuse love, but he himself had been in love for more than a decade without even realizing it. At this moment, he couldn't wait to find Shinjinue. He wanted to tell her that he loved her, very much. He was wrong before, and he wouldn't be like that anymore, never again. 13. After finding out Shinjinue's flight, Li Yuli immediately booked a ticket. Just as he was about to drive to the airport, he collided with a truck. He had a car accident and fell into a coma for a full week. When he woke up, only Fan Yueshi was by his side. When Fan Yueshi met his gaze, she was uncharacteristically flustered. Li Yuli's eyes suddenly turned as cold as a deep pool. Intimidating, she trembled and said, "Yuli, do you feel unwell anywhere?" Li Yuli didn't speak. He took his phone, unlocked it. And when he saw that the person at the top of his contacts had been out of touch since a week ago, a mocking smile curved his lips. His eyes became inexplicably empty. When he was in a coma, he had a very long dream. He dreamed that after Shinjinue confessed to him, he brought Fan Yueshi home and told her that this was her little aunt. He dreamed that Shinjinue quarreled with him again and again, saying that she loved him, and fought wits with Fan Yueshi. Then he saw Shinjinue being dragged away from the bar, crying in a sorry state and asking him for help. Her fingers were broken one by one in front of his eyes. And he, because he had promised Fan Yueshi that he would never interfere in Shinjinue's affairs again, watched coldly. Clearly, his heart ached so much that he was almost suffocating, but he still pretended not to care. In the dream, Shinjinue's hands were disabled, and she could no longer hold a scalpel. He watched as Shinjinue sat in the hospital ward every day, staring blankly at the sky outside and inexplicably shedding tears. He saw herself harming again and again, with the scars on her wrists getting deeper and deeper. Clearly, Shinjinue had once said, "I want to be the best doctor in the future." At that time, he had promised Shinjinue that he would always protect her and her golden hands, but in the end, he became the chief culprit. He was afraid to see Shinjinue. He was afraid that Shinjinue would look at him with those cold eyes. And he was afraid that he would no longer see a trace of love in Shinjinue's eyes. He regretted it after Shinjinue's first suicide attempt, but he also knew that they could never go back. Shinjinue died at the age of 25, and he finally didn't marry Fan Yueshi. Even when Fan Yueshi threatened him with her life, he remained unmoved. He insisted on marrying Shinjinue, even though everyone was scolding him. "How shameless, you forced your little niece to death and still want to marry her." He didn't hesitate. Their wedding was grand, but there were no guests. He held Shinjinue's ashes and completed the wedding. Finally, he also committed suicide at the wedding. 14. 3 months later, I was stunned when Li Yuli found me. I had just come out of the ward and looked up to see him. He had lost a lot of weight. The suit that used to fit him well now couldn't even hold up on his skinny body. His face was deathly pale as he forced a smile. I slightly frowned and kept my distance from him. "Have you been doing well recently?" He greeted me awkwardly. I nodded. I had heard more or less about Li Yuli's affairs. The day I went abroad, he had a car accident. After waking up from the accident, he wanted to send Fan Yueshi back to Hong Kong City and broke off the engagement with her. Fan Yueshi disagreed and made a big scene with him. Li Yuli still didn't back down. Fan Yueshi was so angry that she stole the Li family's business secrets and sold them to 2 or 3 of his competitors. Overnight, he was attacked from both sides. The Li family's stock was in turmoil, the capital chain was broken, and the projects were suspended. It took him 3 months of non-stop work to barely stabilize the situation. Fan Yueshi was sued by him and sentenced to 5 years. "When are you planning to go back to Jingbei?" he asked again, his tone cautious. I smiled and said, "I'm not going back." He was taken aback. "Why, you're home, little uncle. You forget that I no longer have a home in Jingbei. After my parents died, the only relative I had was Li Yuli, but later, Li Yuli didn't want me either. So, whether in the previous life or this life, I have no home." Li Yuli wanted to say something else, But I didn't listen anymore. I followed the stretcher that had just come in and rushed into the operating room. 5 hours had passed when I came out. I thought he should have left long ago. Unexpectedly, Liuli was still standing there, stubbornly waiting for me. His eyes were filled with complex emotions that were hard to understand. I didn't understand, nor did I know what he wanted to do, until he followed me to the downstairs of the dormitory and asked me, "Did it hurt a lot when your fingers were broken?" Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks, and my 5 fingers subconsciously tightened. He looked at my back, and his voice was faintly nasal. I just said, "Why did my Jinue suddenly stop liking me?" "I'm sorry, Jinue, I was wrong. I thought I didn't love you, but halfway through his words, he choked up, he covered his eyes, and tears overflowed from between his fingers. His shoulders kept shaking, as if in extreme pain. I was just too scared. I was afraid that if we started, we wouldn't have a good ending. I was afraid that in the end, we wouldn't have any relationship at all. I thought Fanyueshi's appearance would only break your thoughts about me. I didn't expect that it would turn out like this in the end. I'm sorry, you've suffered so much and been brave for so many years." The more he spoke, the more painful he became. He slowly approached me carefully. When he tried to hold my hand, I avoided it and then turned around to look at Liuli. "There's no need to dwell on it. Is there? I have a new life, and Liuli will have one in the future. It's just that we won't have any intersection anymore, little uncle. People always have to move forward." After saying that, the last glimmer of light in Liuli's eyes was completely extinguished. "Jinue," he forced a bitter smile. "I'm sorry, goodbye, little uncle." 15. After Shinjinue said the last word, she turned around and left without hesitation. Liuli habitually took out the cigarette case from his pocket. His hands were shaking as he took out a cigarette and tried to light it, but the lighter just wouldn't work. The wind on the border was so strong, the sand blew into his eyes, and it hurt so much that he couldn't stop the tears from flowing. If he could have been brave once, if he could have been reckless for Shinjinue once without considering the consequences, would there not be such an ending? At least he would have had something. If they couldn't reach the end, it would be that they had no fate, but he wasn't even willing to pay the cost of trial and error. After Shinjinue returned to the dormitory, she walked to the balcony. Coincidentally, he looked up. She seemed to feel his gaze. She lowered her head, and when their eyes met, she smiled calmly, took in all the clothes, and then closed the balcony door again. Her movements were smooth, without a trace of reluctance. At this moment, he really realized that he had been completely blacklisted by Shinjinue. She wouldn't be attracted to him anymore. Thinking of this, he vomited a large pool of blood and fainted downstairs of her dormitory. 16. That day, I was wearing a dress he had custom made for me at great expense, and I had booked the most luxurious hotel in Jingbei. The next time I heard news about Liuli was 3 years later. He had lung cancer, at an advanced stage, on his deathbed. He hoped that I could go and see him one last time. I looked at my fully scheduled surgeries and regretfully refused. A friend said, "Before he died, Liuli notarized all his property and put it under your name. He was really infatuated with you. Why did you two end up like this?" I just smiled. At that time, I also wanted to ask why we ended up like this. Now when I think about it, none of it matters anymore. People have their own fates when they're alive, and the same when they're dead. Story 2. My best friend urged me to confess to my childhood friend at the class reunion, but in reality, the two of them were already together. She just wanted to embarrass me in public. As a result, I ended up confessing to the school bully who had secretly loved me in our past life but never expressed it. School bully. Surprise, the school beauty has been reborn. 1. While waiting for the elevator at the KTV with Shintang, there were boys constantly looking our way. Isn't that the school beauty? When Xiao, she looks even prettier in person. She must be a goddess, right? I dream of having a girlfriend like her. I really want to ask for her contact info, but she's too beautiful. I don't dare. Shintang stood next to me with a poker face, but the fist hidden in his sleeve was clenched tightly. Suddenly, I realized that she must have been dissatisfied with me for a long time. It wasn't until she saw a familiar figure that Shintang excitedly called out, "Gu Xian, over here." "Here I come, Tang Tang." Gu Xian hastened his steps with a smile. As he approached, I discreetly stepped back 2 paces without making a sound. I didn't even glance at him. Gu Xian paused slightly. Normally, without him saying anything, I would have gone up to him. Despite his obvious impatience with me, "Gu Xian, Qiao Qiao has something to say to you tonight." "Right, Qiao Qiao." Shintang nudged me with her elbow, signaling me to speak, but I pushed her hand away instead. I know Guxian. I turned my head to look the other way. 3 boys were walking over. Sunge also came tonight. Sunge, your new sports car is really cool. When can I drive it? Our Sunge just woke up and doesn't want to talk. He didn't plan to come. But he must have received some news. Hee. My gaze then fell on the boy called Sunge. He looked like he had just woken up, his black hair messy over his forehead, one hand casually pocketed, the other idly twirling a car key. Only when our eyes met did his body stiffen momentarily, his eyes slowly lifting, but he quickly avoided my gaze. Zhu Xuanran, good evening, I initiated. The people around us were somewhat surprised. School bully Zhu Xuanran and school beauty Wen Qiao seemed to have never interacted before. Could it be they knew each other? Zhu Xuanran also paused, his voice hoarse as he slowly said, yeah, good evening. The 2 boys beside him exchanged meaningful looks, tilting their heads to the side and snickering secretly. Wen Qiao, Guxian looked at me with that impatient demeanor, as if it were his right. When did you get to know Zhu Xuanran? As if to lecture me as before, but this time I wouldn't comply. I rolled my eyes. What's it to you? Guxian pursed his lips as he looked at me, his eyes deep. Qiao, how can you talk like that? Shintang was the first to come out in defense of Guxian. Guxian is looking out for you. He doesn't want you to associate with that kind of person. Why are you so aggressive? What kind of person? I stared at her. Someone who acts one way to your face but another behind your back. Or someone full of lies and deceit. Don't get me wrong, I'm talking about you. Guxian and I were childhood friends, and after becoming best friends with Shintang, I naturally introduced him to her. Despite knowing my feelings for Guxian, she flirted with him behind my back while persuading me to pursue him. Even though I felt Guxian's inexplicably cold and annoyed attitude towards me, I never imagined it would be the doing of my so-called best friend. Shintang didn't expect me to defend Zhu Xuanran. She hurriedly tried to pull me aside to remind me not to forget to confess to Guxian, but I swiftly withdrew my arm from her grasp. Shintang, caught off guard by her own excessive force, nearly fell, but Guxian quickly caught her with concern. This time, his gaze was so intense, it was as if he wanted to tear me apart. Wen Qiao, what are you doing? Apologize to Tang Tang, he demanded, his voice harsh and loud enough to draw the attention of those around us. He glared at me fiercely. Advancing step by step, I found myself retreating under his pressure, but in the next second, I backed into a firm chest, a pleasant scent of sandalwood enveloping me. Instinctively, I turned, my forehead bumping against the nose of a young man. He steadied me by the arms, directing me to face Guxian, his palms broad and warm. Zhu Xuanran spoke indifferently, pausing between each word, such a fierce voice, just like my dog at home. He was standing up for me, too. I remember in my previous life at this time, I was reduced to tears by Guxian, secretly turning away to wipe them. Zhu Xuanran was idly chatting with his buddies not far away, yet his eyes remained fixed on me, his brows were furrowed tightly, his hand pressed against the wall, veins bulging. That night ended with me being humiliated and rejected by Guxian, crying as I ran back to the dorm. The next day, I heard from classmates that Guxian had been severely beaten the night before and was hospitalized. It seems it was this young master who had acted. Brother Sun, don't say that, your Tibetan mastiff looks much more spirited than this guy. I can attest to that, and it's worth much more too, said Zhu Xuanran's follower, swaying over and quickly drawing the attention of everyone around. The elevator doors were open, but no one dared to enter. What, looking for a fight? Guxian asked coldly. No. No, Zhu Xuanran corrected, a fight implies both sides are equal, but I can crush you single-handedly. I believed Zhu Xuanran was not exaggerating. With that in mind, I politely stepped aside. Mr. Zhu, after you. Guxian, come on, we're all classmates here, it's all a misunderstanding. Shintang, frightened, quickly pushed Guxian toward the stairwell. She didn't forget to signal to me. Qiao, don't be temperamental, remember why we came here tonight. I really wanted to slap her. In my previous life, influenced by Shintang, I confessed to Guxian and was publicly rejected. He then took Shintang's hand and announced their relationship, branding me as the other woman. Overnight, I went from the envied school beauty to a laughingstock and object of ridicule. Later, I developed depression and dropped out of school. During my illness, I often received anonymous encouraging letters. The handwriting was neat, with just a few simple words: keep going, someone is always here. Each letter came with a blue bellflower. Only after my accidental death did I discover that all those letters and flowers were from Zhu Xuanran, the boy who used to blush every time he saw me, whom I had never noticed before. Thinking of the past life, emotions welled up, causing my shoulders to tremble slightly. Zhu Xuanran seemed to sense my distress, hesitantly calling out my name. Wen Qiao. His tone sounded ordinary, but I detected an unprecedented tenderness. I snapped back to reality. The elevator is here. I nodded and immediately walked towards the elevator. Be careful. I didn't notice the elevator doors were closing when Zhu Xuanran swiftly moved forward and held the door open for me, while someone exclaimed dramatically nearby. I bumped into the young man's arms, and in that moment, I could hear my heartbeat racing. His hand was still pressed against the door frame. He was facing slightly away from me, his eyebrows slightly furrowed, his nose prominent, and his lips a bright red. I couldn't help but marvel at how someone could remain so fair and have such tender skin despite playing soccer and fighting in all weathers on the playground. Lost in these thoughts, I arrived at the top floor lobby. The classmates who had arrived early had the music blaring, but when they saw Zhu Xuanran's stern face, they quietly turned down the volume. Actually, I don't think Zhu Xuanran was in a bad mood. It's just that he looks quite intimidating even when expressionless. Jojo, come over here. Shen Tang beckoned me to sit with them. Gu Xian was also staring straight at me. In the past, whenever he looked at me, I would definitely go over to him, but times have changed. Now, I sit wherever Zhu Xuanran and his guys sit. The two guys seemed quite flattered. What day is it today that the school beauty would sit with us? The guys over there must be green with envy. Zhu Xuanran's mouth twitched, and he held back a smile as he slapped one of the boys on the head. Watch your language. The lady is here. Suddenly, I found this bad student known throughout the school quite endearing. We sat there in groups, and throughout, Shen Tang kept giving me meaningful looks which I pretended not to notice. Finally, she couldn't hold it in any longer. Jojo, didn't you say you had something to tell Gu Xian tonight? She raised her voice an octave, drawing the attention of the other students. Jojo, don't leave with regrets. Speak out everything you've been holding back for years about Gu Xian tonight. I want to know too. The amount of information in her words was quite substantial, sparking gossip among the classmates. I nodded with a smile. Yes, I do have something I want to say in front of everyone tonight. I didn't miss the extremely excited yet envious look in Shen Tang's eyes. Jojo, go ahead. She could hardly contain herself, her voice trembling with excitement. Gu Xian looked at me coldly, his face full of annoyance. In the silent atmosphere, I stood up, walked in front of Zhu Xuanran, and spoke loudly. Zhu Xuanran, I've liked you for a long time. Will you be my boyfriend? The room erupted in amazement. It was as if a depth charge had been dropped, and the place immediately boiled over. Damn. Zhu Xuanran's guy was so shocked he bumped into him. The boy seemed petrified. A flush quickly climbed up his pale face from his ears. He looked at me, his Adam's apple bobbing, and a glint flickered in his dark eyes. Are you serious? He asked in a hoarse voice. Of course, I smiled broadly. What? Shen Tang screamed, no longer bothering to pretend as she rushed up to me. Jojo, how can you confess to Zhu Xuanran? Weren't you going to confess to Gu Xian? Gu Xian. Seeing Zhu Xuanran's gaze dim, I turned around, and saw Gu Xian had also stood up from the couch. His face terribly dark. I chuckled lightly. Why would I confess to him? He's not my type at all. Gu Xian. I had never seen such a look in his eyes before. Astonishment, shock, pain, disbelief, all sorts of complex emotions flashed by as he walked over. What are you doing, Gu Xian? Shen Tang almost instinctively grabbed his hand. I laughed and said, Shen Tang, I should really thank you for persistently encouraging me to like him. But isn't he your boyfriend, right, Gu Xian? I looked at Gu Xian, who responded in his usual nonchalant manner. No. Shen Tang, shocked and anxious, tried to defend herself, but by then, everyone had already made their own judgments, especially the girls, who instantly understood the situation tonight. Our class representative, always straightforward, spoke up directly. It's disgusting how you manipulate your best friend every day. Such people only pretend to be innocent in front of guys. Shen Tang's face flushed red instantly. However, to my surprise, Gu Xian seemed unaffected by it. I suddenly realized he wasn't clueless. He had always silently condoned Shen Tang's bullying and slander towards me. Gu Xian spoke calmly. Wen Qiao, are you joking about yourself just to upset me? His confidence overwhelmed me. I stared at him and said, Gu Xian, you've been trampling over our friendship. expecting me to heal my wounds and come back to you. Where do you get the confidence to keep hurting me? Do you really think I can't live without you?" He fell silent. Zhu Xuanran, as if thawed from stone, stepped in front of me. His earlobes were as red as ripe cherries. "Whether she's joking or not, she has nothing to do with you now." "But I was serious," I said innocently, blinking. The next second, I pulled Zhu Xuanran by the shoulders to face me and kissed him. Zhu Xuanran's eyes widened, the classmates froze, then erupted into cheers. "Can I really watch this for free? Help, this perfect match." My goddess, it turns out the only one who matches the school beauty in looks is Zhu Xuanran. While I kissed him, his breathing stopped. A faint scar at the corner of his eye was now hidden in the shadow of his long lashes. Zhu Xuanran looked at me in shock, his long lashes not even blinking. This only piqued my interest further. He had no idea how attractive his eyes were. It was like teasing an innocent young man. I gently caressed his lips and whispered, "Zhu Xuanran, why do you blush so easily? Don't you know how to kiss your girlfriend?" His face turned even redder. The young man reached out, grasped the back of my head, and deepened the kiss. This was my first kiss in 2 lifetimes, and I never expected to be so forward. It was impulsive. Seeing him, I just wanted to kiss him. Is this what it feels like to actually start a romance? It seems quite sweet. I slowly closed my eyes. That night, I was in a daze until Zhu Xuanran walked me back to my dorm. As for Gu Xian and Shen Tang, I completely ignored them and blocked them both upon my return. A friendship that's too crowded doesn't need deliberate pushing from anyone. I'd rather walk away myself. 5. Just after I got back to the dorm, Shen Tang knocked on my door, insisting that I had misunderstood and wanting to explain. She said she had no special feelings for Gu Xian. Her tone intensified as she asked, "Qiao Qiao, do you really not like Gu Xian anymore? Didn't you say you liked how handsome and mature he is? Aren't you childhood sweethearts?" I understood that Shen Tang couldn't accept that the only thing she thought she had over me was already discarded by me. Her feelings for Gu Xian might not be love, but rather a desire to compete with me. "Qiao Qiao, can you come out and talk?" Shen Tang persisted outside, knocking until my roommate sent her away. My gaze stayed fixed on my phone screen, my lips curving into a smile. Zhu Xuanran had just added me on his contact list tonight, asking groggily, "Are we really together? I'm very innocent, don't lie to me." I burst out laughing. I found a couple of profile pictures and sent them to him. Zhu Xuanran skillfully made the change. He said, "I'm still a bit excited," I said with a smile. "Don't be too excited, we'll go to class together tomorrow. Good night, my boyfriend." "Okay, good night, my girlfriend." It was only later that I heard from his roommate that he was more than just a bit excited. That night, he nearly tore his dorm apart, running into the hallway and shouting, "Wen Qiao is my girlfriend," until the early hours of the morning. No one dared to stop him. He only stopped when he lost his voice. Then he took a cold shower and, still unable to contain his excitement, went to the track to run laps. 6. That night, I put down my phone and lay in bed, struggling to fall asleep for a long time. During the period I took a break from school in my previous life, I mostly spent my time taking medication and seeing doctors. I was no longer the envy of others. In the past, I was an excellent student and talented in singing and dancing, recognized as the versatile school beauty and a role model for underclassmen. After I fell from grace, it seemed like everyone had forgotten me, except for him. Zhu Xuanran would never abandon Wen Qiao. Because of him, slowly, no one dared to talk about me behind my back. Even at the new school beauty contest, Zhu Xuanran officially voted by writing my name on the day of the school vote. I was sitting by the window at home, contemplating for the umpteenth time whether to jump. My mother, trembling, ran into my room with her phone and said, "Daughter, look, your classmates haven't forgotten you. This male student is holding your name." In the live video, at the vast voting scene, Zhu Xuanran wore a black suit he seldom wore, looking solemn and out of place, walking alone to the front under everyone's gaze. He seemed to disregard everyone present, always indifferent to anything. He solemnly placed the sign with Wen Qiao written on it onto the table. That lone, singular vote shone brighter than any other name in that moment. The sun splashed around, and the young man looked at the sign in his hand, his lips curling up. "Forgive my bluntness, but this school beauty contest is unnecessary. The gap is too wide." The host, caught off guard by this turn of events, hesitated and asked, "Zhu, are you sure?" "Absolutely sure." The young man slightly looked up at the camera, smiling confidently. When Zhu Xuanran sets his sights on someone, He will choose her over and over again, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Until I die. I stared blankly at the screen, suddenly remembering the person who anonymously wrote letters to encourage me. On one of the letters, there was a drawing of a girl holding a comically looking little dog wearing black clothes and sporting a scar below its eye. On the back, it read, "The little dog will never abandon you, forever fervent and loyal." Remembering the comical appearance of the little dog in the drawing, I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed to be the first time I had laughed since falling ill. My mother, shocked and excited, watched as I finally showed the emotions a normal person should have. She stood there, unsure what to do, and after a while, she came over crying and hugged me. "Now that I have been reborn, I will never let down anyone who likes me, nor will I let anyone easily destroy me." 7. The next morning, Zhu Xuanran and I walked hand in hand across the campus, attracting glances from passers-by. Zhu Xuanran's usually stubborn and rebellious bangs hung down naturally today, complementing his dark, large eyes, giving him a strangely well-behaved look. Suddenly, I really wanted to kiss him. Just then, we passed a child eating a candied haw, his large eyes exceptionally bright and adorable. I was instantly captivated. I shyly pointed at him and said to Zhu Xuanran, "Look, I want one like that too. I want to have a child like that with you." I didn't have the courage to say the rest. I figured a combination of genes with Zhu Xuanran couldn't be too bad, right? Ideally, having both a son and a daughter, with the son taking after him and the daughter after me. Zhu Xuanran nodded in sudden realization. "I get it now. I promise, whatever others have, you'll have too." He looked around, then let go of my hand and ran off to the side. "Where are you going?" I was stunned. The young man didn't look back and quickened his pace. "Wait for me. I'll bring you some candied hawthorn sticks right back." Zhu Xuanran, can you be any more straightforward? I simply sat down on a bench by the roadside and played with my phone while waiting for him. I was engrossed in a game when I heard footsteps that were neither light nor heavy stop in front of me. "Is that you, Zhu Sun?" The smile on my face vanished in an instant, and Gu Xian, rarely seen smiling, was holding a steaming, fragrant bag of xiaolongbao. "You haven't had dinner yet, right? Here. Your favorite nanqiang xiaolong." He handed me the bag, but with a gesture, I knocked the bag out of his hand. "Gu Xian, do you know, I've died once before, both physically and spiritually. What I can't allow myself to do is make the same mistake again. Sorry, my boyfriend will be taking me out to dinner in a bit." I paused, then thinking about not littering, bent down to pick up the bag and neatly threw it into the trash can. Gu Xian watched all this with a smile from beginning to end. "Ciao ciao. You've always been such a proud girl," I retorted unapologetically, "and you've always been sick." After speaking, I was about to leave, but Gu Xian suddenly raised his voice. "Have you seen Zhu Xuanran get into fights with people after drinking with his friends? Have you seen him in a bar, gambling and drinking with others? Do you know that there are many girls around Zhu Xuanran, and he might just be playing with you?" I turned my head and looked at him expressionlessly. Gu Xian's tone became steadier as he said, "You've never been in touch with Zhu Xuanran before. Wen Xiao, do you really like him? Someone as unreliable as him, worthy of you?" His following words were choked back. I withdrew my hand, and Gu Xian incredulously touched his cheek that had just been struck by me. "You hit me for him?" "Yes." I stared at him fiercely and smiled. "You insult my boyfriend. And I wonder why I didn't finish you off." Surprise and estrangement filled Gu Xian's eyes. "Indeed. I used to be extremely meek. I wouldn't physically fight with anyone, nor even speak harshly. Whenever I cried because of Gu Xian, he would disdainfully say that I was just a greenhouse flower pampered by my family, easily brought to tears over trivial matters, and that I should stick with boys who would pamper and adore me, as he wouldn't. But my tears were more out of sadness, sad because he never stood by my side." "Gu Xian." A scream came, and Shen Tang, who had been hiding somewhere until now, suddenly rushed out, anxiously cradling Gu Xian's face to check. "Does it hurt? Are you badly injured?" "Wen Xiao, you went too far. How could you treat Gu Xian like this?" she prattled on, but Gu Xian was looking straight at me, suddenly interrupting her. "Wen Xiao, you've changed. Thanks for noticing." I pulled out a tissue from my pocket, vigorously wiped my hands clean, and threw it into the trash can. "Gu Xian, let's go." Shen Tang's expression darkened a bit. She pulled on Gu Xian's arm and forcefully led him away. Gu Xian followed her but still turned his head towards me. He took a few steps and then stopped, his eyes still full of complex emotions. Facing their gaze, I turned away expressionlessly. Beneath the camphor tree up ahead stood a slender figure, a young man holding a skewer of candied hawthorn fruit in his hand. He curved his eyes in a smile at me in the soft light of dawn. My eyes suddenly lit up. "Zhu Xuanran," I called out, smiling as I ran towards him. He opened his arms to catch me. I hugged him tightly around his lean waist, secretly thinking how nice it felt to hold him. His arms were long enough to envelop me completely. "Ciao ciao." Zhu Xuanran's voice fell gently and softly on my head. "You really don't have to stand up for me. I never care about what those people say, I know. But I just won't let anyone speak ill of my boyfriend," I whispered, tightening my embrace. Just as countless times before. When I watched Gu Xian and Shen Tang walking away together, this time I boldly took Zhu Xuanran's hand in front of them, clinging to his arm like a human charm, letting him feed me the candied hawthorn as we walked toward the cafeteria. It's just showing off a bit when you've found someone you like. It comes naturally. During lunch, I overheard a girl at the next table commenting, "Who would have thought Zhu Xuanran could smile, and he looks quite good when he does." Her friend immediately nudged her. "Hey, he's already taken. He and Xiao Xiao, the school beauty, really make a great pair." That morning, since there were no classes in Zhu Xuanran's computer science department, he followed me to mine. It was a small class, not many people, and everyone perked up a bit with Zhu Xuanran's arrival. But what caused even more of a stir was the appearance of another school tough girl, Ding Luoyan, who used to hang out with Zhu Xuanran frequently. She had taken a break from school recently, and everyone thought she wouldn't be appearing at school anytime soon. Ding Luoyan had dyed her hair black and for the first time let down her usually tied-up high ponytail, accentuating her already sharp chin. She was dressed in a chic white outfit today, the top open to reveal a sexy bandeau inside, causing the nearby boys to blush and unable to look directly at her. Suddenly I remembered, Ding Luoyan had also been voted the beauty of the computer science department, but later she preferred to dress like a tomboy and hung out with Zhu Xuanran and the others. Seeing me and Zhu Xuanran walk in, Ding Luoyan bluntly said, "Wow, brother's son is also attending classes." Zhu Xuanran didn't even glance at her and pulled me by the hand to sit in the back. Ding Luoyan laughed, turning her head with a cheeky smile. "Isn't that a bit much? Just because I confessed and you rejected me, does it mean you have to avoid me like this? We could still be friends, just like before, and I could continue to be your sidekick, right?" Zhu Xuanran snorted coldly through his nose, silently pulling out a tissue to wipe the desk. Ding Luoyan kept talking. This time her gaze shifted to me. "Brother son, I just realized you like this type, but how am I any different now? Why can't you look at me even once?" Finally, Zhu Xuanran couldn't hold back any longer. He gritted his teeth and threatened, "Ding Luoyan, I don't want to be harsh to girls, but you better behave yourself." "Alright." Ding Luoyan giggled and then turned to flip through a comic book on the table. Love and indifference are indeed very clear, if I'm not mistaken. The comic book Ding Luoyan was looking at was of Zhu Xuanran's favorite style. Meanwhile, Zhu Xuanran was frowning at my calculus textbook, putting on a serious face as if pondering the problems. "Do you know how to solve this problem?" I teasingly leaned over to him. Zhu Xuanran glanced at me, his cheeks immediately turning red. He nodded and then shook his head. "Then I'll explain it to you." I winked at him, and his blush deepened. "He's really cute." I barely held back my laughter as I took a pen to demonstrate the problem for him. When I finished explaining and looked up, I found him hurriedly averting his eyes. "Zhu Xuanran," I said, pretending to be stern, "were you looking at your textbook just now, or were you looking at me?" He glanced at me and then cast his eyes down like a guilty puppy. "Looking at you, Zhu Xuanran. If you keep staring at me like that, the teacher is going to scold you." He blinked nonchalantly and said, "I'd still choose to look at you." That image flashed through my mind again, a girl walking ahead, leading a puppy, which gazed continuously at her back. "Zhu Xuanran, this time I won't let you down again." As the class ended, Zhu Xuanran was called out by a boy who said he needed to talk. As soon as he left, Ding Luoyan came over and sat beside me. Without saying a word, she propped her head up and scrutinized me. I closed my textbook without changing my expression. "You've been watching me during class, haven't you had enough?" The girl grinned and said, "Wen Xiao, he seems to really like you, although everyone says you're the school beauty. I'm still surprised he chose you. It's not that you're not good enough, but in my eyes, Zhu Xuanran is the best." I looked into her eyes. They were beautiful phoenix eyes, devoid of jealousy or resentment, but filled with genuine admiration. It was like a telepathic connection between girls. I could feel she bore no malice towards me. I nodded. "I understand how you feel, and I'll take good care of him." Ding Luoyan picked up a strand of my hair and chuckled, "Did you know, when I first met him, I had the same hairstyle as you, and I liked wearing my hair down too. The first time I met Xuanran, I was cornered by a group of thugs, and no one passing by stopped to help me, except for him. He came charging on his motorcycle and stood in front of me." Speaking of Zhu Xuanran, a spark of light appeared in Ding Luoyan's eyes, and her smile grew wider. I still remember his stern profile under the night sky, arrogant and rebellious. His eyes were wild yet incredibly clear. Fatally attractive to anyone, he looked at those thugs and calmly told me to get on his bike. That was the first time I rode his motorcycle. Later, I decided to follow him everywhere, so I tied up my hair and stuck by him like a brother. At first, he didn't want me to follow him, but after I desperately fought alongside him a few times, making some enemies, he had no choice but to let me. Ding Luoyan's smile turned bittersweet. I thought as long as I could stay by his side, I would have a chance, but I was wrong. Wen Qiao, you are the first person I have ever lost to. Your presence has utterly defeated me. I looked at Ding Luoyan sympathetically, placing my hand on her shoulder, about to offer some comfort, when Shen Tang suddenly burst in. She must have heard many rumors around the school by now, and she looked visibly distressed. "Qiao Qiao, I was indeed with Gu Xian before. It was wrong of me not to tell you, but it was all his idea." I agreed out of helplessness. Ding Luoyan raised her eyebrows with a peculiar expression. Shen Tang continued, "But now I've broken up with him. Qiao Qiao, you will always be my best friend. To hell with men." She forcefully grabbed my hand, her eyes brimming with tears. "Can we go back to how things used to be? Can we be inseparable best friends again?" "So, what do you want?" I said with a smile. Shen Tang thought I was as naive as before, her voice trembling with a sob. "I knew you wouldn't abandon me. You're the best. Did that Zhu Xuanran bully you? If he dares to make you angry, I'll stand up for you." "Stop, stop, stop." Ding Luoyan, sitting with one leg over the other, said, "Why can't I bear to listen to this anymore? Big sister, they are a couple in a good relationship. Why would you meddle in their affairs? Who do you think you are?" Ding Luoyan didn't know Shen Tang, but Shen Tang had heard of Ding Luoyan's reputation and didn't dare provoke this well-known tough woman. Instinctively, she stepped back and whispered, "I was just speaking on behalf of Qiao Qiao. From her perspective, if you don't like it, that's fine." But she didn't say anything. I slowly started to speak. "Luoyan is right. Shen Tang, who do you think you are?" I said each word clearly. "If I remember correctly, when I was still on good terms with Gu Xian, you were the one who insisted every day that you wouldn't let me be bullied and wanted to confront him on my behalf. But as things turned out, you two ended up together, and I became an outsider. Now, are you trying to do the same thing with Zhu Xuanran?" Ding Luoyan suddenly realized and concluded, "Isn't this just the legendary behavior of a green TB*TCH? Stealing your best friend's man. Looks like the big sister here has figured it out." Shen Tang had faced numerous setbacks from last night until today, and now even Ding Luoyan, a stranger, could pinpoint her true nature. She stomped her foot in frustration and ran out of the classroom. I turned back and exchanged a look with Ding Luoyan, and surprisingly, we both burst out laughing at the same time. "Maybe we can be friends," I said. Ding Luoyan smirked. "Forget it, after all. You're my rival in love. I don't want to see either of you again. Today was my last attempt for myself." "Alright, I lost, I accept it." When Zhu Xuanran returned that day, Ding Luoyan had already left the classroom. The comic books she had been flipping through all morning were now quietly lying in the trash can. The page was turned to the first one, with the clumsy but clear handwriting. "Zhu Xuanran, can you please like Ding Luoyan?" 13. From then on, every day felt like I was soaking in a jar of honey. Zhu Xuanran pampered me to the skies, listened to everything I said, and like bewitched, brought me lots of gifts every day, as if wanting to give me everything he considered good. His previously arrogant and domineering demeanor seemed to vanish overnight. Not only did his hairstyle and clothes look like a good student, but he also started smiling more, proudly showing off to his brothers that he had a girlfriend. And he became much more talkative. Those who knew him before could hardly recognize him now, but later, I realized that he hadn't changed his impulsive and adventurous nature. He had just toned down his sharp edges for me. Zhu Xuanran even once gave me the keys to his beloved sports car, which I adamantly refused, because I had already received the best gift he could give me. That was the letters he wrote to me when I was most lonely and helpless, and those beautiful yet lonely blue balloon flowers. In stark contrast were Gu Xian and Shen Tang. Shen Tang had a bad reputation, almost enjoying the treatment I had endured in her previous life, and Gu Xian had become significantly more silent, exuding a repressed aura. Many times, when Zhu Xuanran and I went out hand in hand, we would just happen to run into him perfectly placed, although we didn't greet each other. As we passed by, I could always strongly feel a very intense gaze on me. 14. Time swiftly moved to Christmas Eve, and in my past life, I died on that day. 15. This year's Christmas Eve came with a thick blanket of snow, the moonlight bright, and the ground pure white. My lips were chapped for some reason, and I was so upset that I ignored him for half the day, only agreeing to go out with him in the evening. Zhu Xuanran, learning from TikTok, prepared a big Christmas gift box for me, which contained apples and bright red banknotes. I was amazed at his generosity, yet helpless at his straightforward way of expressing his love. The pedestrian street was bustling, with many couples. The girls' faces were all rosy, their hands tucked into the pockets of the boys holding them. Only the straightforward Zhu Xuanran, with his zipper undone as if he wasn't cold, he took my hand and slipped it into his embrace. "Aren't you cold?" I asked him. Zhu Xuanran chuckled foolishly and said, "Not cold at all, I actually feel quite warm, lately." I had almost forgotten that my boyfriend was once the formidable school tyrant. These days, he always looked blissfully silly, feeding stray cats and dogs, and becoming patient with everything. As we strolled along the street, a commotion suddenly erupted from the crowd. For some reason, the moment I heard the noise, my heart skipped a beat, a bone-deep fear enveloped me, and I shook my head vigorously to clear it. It turned out to be a drunk man who had fallen onto a girl. The girl's boyfriend was furious and wanted to confront him, but the drunk man's friend quickly intervened. The girl loudly claimed it was a misunderstanding and hurriedly pulled her boyfriend away. "Damn idiots." The drunken man stood up, brushed off his hands, and spoke clearly despite his intoxication. Forget it, there are plenty of girls like her around. Come on, let's go to that bar I told you about and drive there." Zhu Xuanran stopped in his tracks and looked over. Darkness filled his eyes, and fine red veins slowly crept across his eyeballs. Chow, wait here. "I'm going to buy you some chocolate milk tea," he instructed me earnestly. "There's a police station nearby, just sit here and wait for me. Don't go anywhere." "Okay, I'll be back soon." I felt something was off but agreed nonetheless. After Zhu Xuanran left, I saw the person I disliked the most. Gu Xian, who usually wore white or light blue shirts, was dressed in black tonight. He stood a few steps away, silently watching me, but I had promised Zhu Xuanran to wait there for him, so I wouldn't leave easily. I shifted my position, sitting with my legs boldly crossed. According to Gu Xian, I could never like a girl who was both unruly and sharp. How ridiculous. Once, because Gu Xian liked light blue shirts, I bought many blue skirts. Ding Luoyan liked Zhu Xuanran whether his hair was tied up or let down. Zhu Xuanran had transformed himself into a well-behaved student for me. Now, Gu Xian wore black, a color he once hated. All for me. Everyone changes for the one they like. But little do they know, love itself is an existence that breaks all norms. There will always be someone whose arrival shatters all your expectations and predictions. They may not be perfect, but the moment they appear, a voice in your heart will say, "It's them." Chow. "Can't we go back to how things were before?" Gu Xian suddenly spoke. Before Shintang was in the picture, I remember in junior and senior high school, Gu Xian used to give me rides to and from school on his bicycle. He was a man of few words, listening as I chattered away, unmoving even at the funniest moments. Perhaps only the wind knew if he laughed then, because I was always popular at school. He said he hated the feeling of being talked about when walking with me, so we made a pact not to act like we knew each other on campus, and after Shintang came into the picture, he would bring only one milk tea when he met up with me and Shintang waiting for him. It was strawberry flavored, Shintang's favorite. But he forgot, I also loved milk tea, my favorite being chocolate flavored. Gu Xian, what do you think? I said somberly. Is there a need to go back to how things were? Shintang only has eyes for you. She's faking it, I can tell, Gu Xian finally admitted. I couldn't help but scoff. Amusing yourself by letting her torment me, are you? A flicker passed through Gu Xian's eyes. When Xiao, I just wanted you to tone down your brilliance a bit. You're so dazzling that I always feel you won't stay by my side forever. I'm sorry. This was the first time in my life I heard Gu Xian apologize to anyone. Unfortunately, this apology was too late to mean anything. I think we have nothing left to say. Some people admire roses for their beauty, while others fear getting hurt by their thorns and choose to do whatever it takes to make them wither. Such selfish people do not deserve my forgiveness. Suddenly, a frantic figure ran towards us. Ding Luoyan's face was pale, and she was on the verge of tears. It's bad, Wen Xiao. Zhu Xuanran has started fighting with someone. There are many of them and they've been drinking. Call the police quickly. When we arrived at the scene, I saw fragments scattered all over the alley and faint traces of blood. People were strewn about in disarray, and my heart shattered. Nobody go over there. My voice was low. I had never been so calm yet so frantic. Gu Xian and Ding Luoyan were startled by my expression. Gu Xian still wanted to move forward but was sternly stopped by Ding Luoyan. Wen Xiao, you go. If anything feels wrong, call us immediately. The police and ambulance are on their way. I nodded. I knew that at this moment, Zhu Xuanran only wanted to see me. I walked slowly forward. The ground was littered with many people, all bearing severe marks of being beaten with clubs. I couldn't imagine my boyfriend, alone and unsupported, facing this mob, but he still won. He wasn't unharmed, he just crazily held on until the end. Shen Tang was also there, kneeling on the ground, trembling all over and babbling something. Yes, the drunk man who was harassing the girl earlier was bothering Shen Tang. The boy with her at the time was Gu Xian. Gu Xian couldn't let go of Shen Tang's docile charm, but he also couldn't let go of me, his childhood sweetheart. How could I not be disgusted by such a man? I just couldn't stand how Gu Xian left me again to go to her. I walked towards a less crowded area in a fit of pique, and just by the parking lot entrance, I encountered that group. I was so scared. I said that our school's beauty, Wen Xiao, was very attractive. If they dared, they should go find her. Shen Tang was shaking violently, kneeling on the ground and stuttering, until she finally passed out. Zhu Xuanran, who had been struggling to keep upright on his knees, let go of the wooden stick in his hand and also collapsed, but in the moment he fell, I caught him. Qiao Qiao. I saw liquid falling onto his shoulder. I realized then, I was crying. Why cry? Qiao Qiao. The boy's face was somewhat pale, but he still smiled at me happily. Look, I took them all down by myself. Like a child waiting to be praised, Zhu Xuanran said weakly. Qiao Qiao, I had a very real dream. In the dream, that bald drunk drove into you, and I almost went mad. I remember his face very clearly, so I couldn't help but follow them. When I heard Shen Tang leading them to you, everything I saw in the dream suddenly flooded my mind. I couldn't control my emotions, and just, fool, I suddenly laughed through my tears, whether in my past life or this one. He always goes all out to stand up for me. That him, determined to protect me and not allow anyone to harm me, has never changed. Zhu Xuanran rested his head on my shoulder, and I heard him whisper softly, Qiao Qiao, unlike in the dream, I can finally protect you by your side. I fought back the sting in my eyes and reached out to gently trace the contours of his face. I whispered softly, little dog, I've come to take you home. The last letter he sent me in a past life contained a lengthy message. The language of Bellflower speaks of eternal love and hopeless love. My love for you is eternal, yet I know I may never see you turn back. You surely don't know a boy named Zhu Xuanran, nor would you know that blue was the color you wore when I first saw you. That day, you were wearing a fairy-like long blue dress, carrying a backpack, walking under the shade of trees on a small path. The moment I saw you, my whole world became clear and bright. I had never seen such a beautiful girl before. Pointing at you, I told my brother, is that the school belle Wen Xiao? I must win her over. Ironically, I later realized I was just a coward. I only dared to watch you from a distance, never brave enough to approach. The countless times we crossed paths were actually moments I had deliberately planned, building up courage over and over again. At some point, I suddenly realized that such a dazzling girl belonged to the world, not to Zhu Xuanran. That day, I suddenly felt an overwhelming need to see him. For the first time, I ran out of the house with my weak body, and in my haste, I was struck by a car while crossing the street and died on the spot. Fortunately, from this misfortune, I was reborn. Wen Xiao does not belong to this world. Wen Xiao belongs only to Zhu Xuanran, my most beloved little dog. Please believe that this time I will never let go of your hand.